Alright, so if I continue on and do a slide in, what we're going to need to know is what dimension enclosure I can fit through this hole back here. Now down here at the bottom, from seal to seal, we could fit, our inside measurement is, we'll say 54, so we could fit 53 down here. But going inside of these panels is right at 49, so we could fit 48 down here. So we know 48, this is the narrowest place, so we know that 48 is our width of our slide in. Now if we measure from the high point, which is on top of this little trim piece, up to the center, we're looking at 35 inches tall. So you could say it's 45 by 38, right? Or 35. 48 by 35. We got 35 and a half, so we got 35 would be the maximum height, right? Well, there's a problem with that. If we look at that 35-inch measurement, and then we measure from here to here, we're only looking at 45 inches, right? That means that our box, our 48-inch wide, 35-inch tall box, would run into this. It would come over to about here and would impact about right here. It would impact this corner. So we have to figure out slightly different measurements. Now if I take this stick here, set it up right there against that inside, to the maximum point where it starts to collide with this, it's about right there, and measure from there down to that edge. It's more like 27 and a half. Unfortunately, our 48 is a short measurement. I mean, it's actually 49. So we're actually going to be stepping back in a ½ inch on each side, which gives us a little bit more space, because this part running up is going to wind up right in here somewhere, about where that screw is, and that gets us 31. This is why 31 is my maximum height instead of 35. Having said that, it is possible to do 35 and then trim some corners off so that this part right here is cut out on the box, and we could slide it in with some angles. Well, 45's up here. And Although we'd be cutting a little bit of that air volume out by putting dog ears on. We'd be gaining an additional, 4 inches of height. So we would gain all of this airspace right here for the whole length of the enclosure. I think it might be worth the while to trim these ears. Well, if we went that route, let's take a look at how else that lays out. Now, there's not much to see here. The box would slide in and would have a 45-degree angle chip on it right here that would slide forward to somewhere up in this area with that 45-degree cut. If we set our seat back into position, I had moved it out because I was cleaning things out back there. That leaves us with a box that comes up here and has a 45-degree angle cut about where that subwoofer is, about piece of wood over there in the corner. Which means our subwoofer would come up here. This fuzzy stuff keeps falling down. It's rough. That corner, it always comes down in that one spot. But essentially, the cutoff would be right here. That'd be a corner, you know, cut right about there. Because this box just barely fits in. So the other measurements we need to know is the actual measurement from the bottom of the enclosure. I can get that from the other side. On this side being less finished, you can actually see the bottom of my box right here and the top of the box right here. So measuring from the bottom of the box up, kind of on an angle that might not work perfectly. It was 34 inches actually. Yeah, it was 34 inches, but it was only like 44 inches wide, I think, something like that. So we know we can fit 34 in here, top to bottom, as long as we leave these ears cut off. As cheap as I went on this box, using recycled stuff and everything, it's still solid. Now for the last measurement. This area right here is where the front of the baffle is right now. I can go forward of that some because of how far it sets back in there. But assuming that line for now, we'll have to hold the tape in place, get it kind of hovering there, and then hold it in place here and walk it back. So we're at 60 inches right here where my thumb is, and which is about right there. So the top of the box, it looks like 60 inches is right at the corner of this window right here on this plane. So it's on that line. And the way the back is shaped, so on this line right here, we're at 60 inches, which actually leaves a fair amount of room to our seal. Now our seal, we'll say that the seal is at the end of this window. It's actually just a little bit further back. We'll actually draw a finger line there too, maybe an inch back. So that leaves room easily to put in trumped under lithium back here if I need to. But if I build it the same way I did before, this one's going to come a little further over this box. No, it can't come past this. That's the end, so I should still have room on the sides. I should still have room on the sides to put amps in. Which means we can make this box 45 inches tall or 35 inches tall, as long as we knock the corners out pretty good. We can make it 35 inches tall. I'd probably go with 34. And the length of 60 inches works too, but we could also put this angle on the box, which is 19 and 7, so that angle, whatever that angle is, 19 and 7, we could put that angle on there and that would still get inside here. And also, pretty sure, yeah, because this point right here is in past the seal. Of course, this shit. So this point here, if we went with 19 and 7, this is our 60-inch smear. I'm going to double check that line. This is 7, and then this is 19. So that'll give us the angle of that glass later on. But this point is the key, okay? And coming around here, that point falls like right in this area here. Maybe about right there where my finger is. That comes in, you know, maybe an inch, inch and a quarter from the seal, which has squish. And then this panel up here, this is the steel contact surface. it would be really tight. But what we need to know now is, we know the angle with the 19 and 7, right? What we need to know now is how far down, because right now that angle would be like coming straight down like this, right? But where does it end? So I need to figure that out, and we can get some extreme dimensions for a potential enclosure. What I'm thinking is, okay, yeah, I know my brain's all jacked up too. What I'm thinking is this space right here, this 7, would be a good area to locate a slot port that ports up to this wall, which will turn this direction. It'll come up to that angled wall. That would allow the port to be outside of the 60-inch measurement. Does that make sense? But what I need to know is, technically, this doesn't go straight at any point, although it goes mostly straight. So we'll have to create us a fake straight line using a level or something. If we can get I got a square in there actually. Let me show you guys. One of our channel members sent me this. And this thing on the end here is being a pain. And then picked it up on eBay for me and had it sent to my address. An entire box of penasses. I'm not sure which is worse. Okay. What this is an adjustable square. I think we might be able to put it to work. It may be too big for this situation. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't quite work for this, because it's too tall. This won't fit where we need it to go. But you know what? It actually might work. Okay, so using this as my final line, we'll follow it up. Okay. I got a rig here, so I hold my tape measure there. We don't want to come back any further than this thing. And I've got it ran through here. It's got a little bit of a twist to it, but it's going to get pretty dang close. Keeping it fairly level, running it up to the edge right here. Well, you guys can even see that, but we're at 66 inches there. And there's about 2 inches of baffle, and I could still come forward, because I'm not going to have the speakers out here. I won't have no need for those to move, so I could still come forward another, oh hell, quite a bit actually. Let me get my tape measure. So if we measure from the box here, you guys' view is going to be skewed, but I figured I'd give you a picture. It looks like 6 inches would hit. And also, mind you, that's this material too. So we're looking at a 2-inch baffle plus 6, that's 8 inches. Plus 66 inches to there. So that will be 72 inches front to back on the lower section. But I don't like being tight on measurements like that, so I'm going to say 70 inches front to back. That'll allow me a little bit of wiggle room, and wiggling is always good. Alright, so instead of cutting a 45 right up here at the top, I think it would be better to measure up a flat right here and then cut the angle to match, because I mean, see, that's where it's going to hit. So what I need to do is get this angle figured out so that I can get it right. So the 45 is just going to be a big old hole, you know. I mean, if I cut a 45 from where this impacts this, it'd be like from here over. Well, that might actually be best. I don't particularly want to cut it too close. I like leaving a little bit of room to fly, because imperfections in vehicles are not symmetric inside. So having little bits of fudging room is a good thing. Alright, after taking some crappy notes, I got my 72 by 48 for my overall base. From the back, got 24 up to the bevel, 40 across the top, 34 up in the center, and 48 wide. That should give me enough measurements to work that out. At that same 24 mark here, we'll also be going in probably at a 45-degree angle also. I know I got the 719, but I'll probably take it in at a 45 also. So we'll have a compound angles. We'll have an angle here. It'll match up with the angle right here. Yeah. So to figure out where the top chamber is going to be and the port, well, that port right there, the bottom of it is the bottom of what will be the enclosure, and this is at the top, so the center is going to be roughly between those two subs, which means the top chamber will be what you guys are looking at right there, that area right there, between the bottom, or between the two subs to the roof, will be all top chamber. Of course, however much I close it in, but yeah, that's going to be right smack behind your freaking head, man. Air City. So what I'm thinking is, I'm only going to put part of the layers on. I ain't sure exactly how many, but I'm going to run essentially the top layer from the box is going to continue forward to right here to add bracing in there to cover that sunroof. That's how that's going to go. That's what I'm thinking anyway. The last one or two, I don't know which, the last one or two layers, I'll offset them so that I'll have a large piece attached to the top of the enclosure that'll go all the way forward to this point, and then I'll fill in the back section that I need, however much that is. It's going to be a couple of feet extra, so just putting a whole sheet on the top, because this here, oh, let me measure that. Yeah, 24 inches is going to put it somewhere in this neighborhood. So I'll probably have just a whole sheet on the last one or two layers on the top, And so when I slide the enclosure in, that piece will go all the way up here and have a nice solid mounting point there. Then I'll have some stuff built up here to attach it to, like I did with this one. And that's going to provide some good solid smooth transition into the enclosure, because it'll be the same, maybe will be the same level all the way through from the roof into the enclosure. That'll make prettying it up really easy. Really easy. Well, it'll be easy as in to design. A lot more work though. I won't, because I won't have a line to stop like a headliner like I'm doing here. It'll just be a solid, like a paint job or something that runs internally throughout the entire enclosure, from about where the visors are now to that. Thinking to do, man. I've already set the dimensions to the mad scientist though, so he's going to be working on it. Guys, I just want to point out my voltage right now is sitting at 13.6, and what's doing it is this little $8 battery charger. I'll throw this thing in the description on this video if you guys are interested in picking it up. But here's the specs on the little guy. So it's got the green light on, which means it's stable, and it's like a 1 amp charger. And I run that because my tablet has a draw. You know, it'll be on and staying charged in here, so it draws on the bank. So I run a light charger whenever I'm sitting for any length of time.